The Kite That Wouldn't Fall. Every summer of his childhood felt like a small festival. Though he lived in a bustling coastal city for most of the year, the long school vacations carried him north to a town of narrow lanes, flat-roofed houses, and endless relatives. Those weeks were spent drifting from one home to another, an uncle for a few days, an aunt for the next, each house offering its own warmth, stories, and flavors. One aunt's home stood out. She had a way of loving that showed itself in full plates and second helpings, in gentle questions and quiet concern. Her house was always alive with laughter. 2 sons, 2 daughters, all roughly the same age, and always ready for mischief, games, and long evenings on the terrace. The terrace was the heart of the house. As the sun softened and the heat loosened its grip, the children climbed upstairs, reels in hand, eyes lifted to the sky. Kites filled the evening air, bright, fluttering triangles slicing through invisible currents. For him, kite flying was more than a pastime. It was freedom. Up there, with the wind pulling at the string, he forgot everything else. Almost everything. Across a narrow street stood another house, close enough that voices carried easily, and on its terrace stood a boy, his age, sharp-eyed, always watching. At first it was just glances, then smirks, and then words. Cruel words. The boy mocked the way he walked, the way one leg lagged just enough to betray him. A childhood illness due to polio had left its mark, subtle but visible. The other boy seized it like a weapon, hurling taunts that stung sharper than any scraped knee. He tried to ignore it. He asked him to stop. He complained to the elders. The adults spoke to neighbors, neighbors spoke to parents. Warnings were given. But the teasing didn't end. It only grew bolder, louder, as if cruelty fed on being noticed. Days passed. The sky filled with kites. The insults kept flying. Until one afternoon, far from the terrace and the open sky, the story shifted. A small shop near the lane sold paper kites stacked in neat bundles. He had gone alone, coins warm in his palm, choosing carefully. And then the door opened, and in walked the same boy. This time there was no distance between rooftops, no street below, no wind to carry words away. The teasing began again. Something snapped. It wasn't anger alone. It was exhaustion, of swallowing words, of walking away, of being patient. The shop seemed to shrink as voices rose. A shove, a grab, a sudden messy fight that neither had planned. There was pain, sharp and surprising, a bite, a blow, a cry that drew attention. And then it was over. They went home separately, bruised and shaken, carrying more than just sore limbs. When the truth came out, it came with force. Adults were no longer calm. This wasn't childish teasing anymore. It had crossed a line. This time, the warning stuck. The boy across the street never called out again, never mocked, never even looked his way. The terrace grew quiet again, peaceful. Kites soared without interruption, and for the first time that summer, he stood there without waiting for the next insult. He hadn't wanted a fight, but he had found something else. His voice. And sometimes he learned, standing up for yourself isn't about winning. It's about making sure the kite in your hands never has to dip again just because someone else tries to pull it down.